Number 8, I've got yet another team with a question at quarterback where it could be great. Everything we're hearing is great, but we just don't know. But a very good roster otherwise, a sneaky good roster. That's the Washington Commanders. Take out the quarterback position, and you've actually maybe got a top 4 roster in the NFC. Tons of offensive playmakers. You've got Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, could be a top 10 wide receiver with good quarterback play. Jahan Dotson had a solid rookie season. Pretty solid offensive line, multiple running backs to choose from. Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez. But the quarterback position, Sam Howell started one game, blew out the Cowboys in that one game. I don't know how much we can take from that one game, but just effusive praise coming out from Commanders training camp on how well Howell was playing. I will say this, John. A couple years ago, when he was still in college at UNC, there were people saying he could be number 1 overall pick, and then his senior season or junior season, whichever it was, just didn't, really dropped his draft stock. So he's got the talent to be that kind of quarterback. Yeah. I'm kind of interested to see what Commanders do. You've got Eric Bieniemy calling plays there now. Ron Rivera, always a great defensive mind. You got a ton of great pieces, basically first-round picks along the defensive line. Emmanuel Forbes, huge fan of him. He's one of my favorite corners coming out. Ball hawking corner that's making a lot of plays in camp. So I'm kind of excited to see what Washington does.
Yeah, they're a fun one because Rivera is very respected, rightfully so. But if they don't put something together with new ownership, it could just be a complete massive change, which is crazy for Rivera to put all that on this quarterback. We'll see there. All right, let's get to number 7.
Number 7, this is a team, on a lot of these teams I say, they could finish higher. This is a team I actually think could finish lower. A team that I did not believe in set a record for the most amount of one-score victories in NFL history last year with 11. That's the Minnesota Vikings. They had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Huge Brian Flores fan, not just because I'm a Dolphins fan, but there's not a lot he has to work with. The little talent they have has gone out the door. And Danielle Hunter, their most talented player, apparently not happy, seeking a trade, and teams are calling and they are engaging. Justin Jefferson, best wide receiver in the NFL. I'm very confident to say that. But you lost Dalvin Cook. Your offensive line has had up and down play. Cousins is great when things around him are good. And more than anything, you cannot count on a team winning that many one-score games. There are too many fluky, luck-based things that happen in any particular NFL game for you to count on any team to win 11 games by one score. I don't care how good you are. That's going to regress.
Negative point differential on the season
for 11 wins and division winner. How is that possible? That's when you look at some of these metrics, John, to reveal what a team is really like. Any team can get lucky. The Titans were winning all sorts of one-score games to the beginning of the season, and then the wheels fell off in the middle of the season. I think we're going to see that from Minnesota. Kirk Cousins has already said there's no contract talks going on. This is the last year he expects to be gone. I think Minnesota knows they're looking at a reset. They don't want to completely throw things away in a division they could still win just because it's a little weak in general. But yes, I'm not high on Minnesota. I could see if we have this conversation towards the end of the regular season, they could be much lower than 7. But for now, in a jumbled NFC, we'll stick them right at the edge of the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. They're trying to blow up their own team. They're done. Yeah, I don't know what their goal is, but Kirk Cousins said, he's fine playing out the last year of his deal, doesn't want a new deal. It's just, I think this is over. The Giants just boat raced them in the playoffs, which was hilarious. All right, let's keep it going.
Also predicted that, by the way. Knew the Giants were going to.
Dude, you were on fire last year.
My record, if you compare, I would have been at the highest win percentage of analysts across the NFL. It was nearly 70%, and I picked every game in the entire NFL season in the playoffs.
You did, because you did your confidence rankings, and whenever I was doing our teaser bets, a lot of times I would check those out and be like, all right, Brian knows what he's talking about. So, you made us some money, so I appreciate that, buddy. All right, let's go number 6.
All right, number 6, another team that I think they overachieved last year, but I love their coaching staff. I do think they got better, especially in the draft, but still a lot of missing pieces. That's the New York Giants. They're another team. They actually won 7 one-score games last year. Flew under the radar because of how many of the Vikings won of those games, but the Giants also squeaked by a lot of teams. Now, unlike Minnesota, I think a lot of that was due to coaching. Brian Daboll has shown now at 2 destinations that he can do wondrous things with toolsy but uncertain quarterbacks. That team loves to play for him. I read an article about how he assembled his coaching staff, and it just gives you some insight into how unique Daboll is. And he didn't hire his friends, and he had a very collaborative environment where all the coaches got together and decided on what the best candidates would be for certain positions that they had to fill. So I do think the Giants are here to stay. Are they going to be as good as they were and win a playoff game? Probably not, but who knows in a wide open NFC. Daniel Jones, they just paid him. Saquon, another big X factor here. Will said he will not play on the tag. Apparently, they're still in current negotiations, but as it stands now, he's said he's willing to sit out the whole season. That's a big question mark with the Giants.
I just can't believe in Daniel Jones. Like, I just can't do it. I don't think he's good. I think he's average at best, which you could win in the NFC with an average as best quarterback. But like you said, I think the ceiling is what they did last year with this roster.
I do agree. So I'm not a Daniel Jones believer, just so we clear. But what Daboll was able to do is he was able to get Jones to play within the structure of his offense. He actually went from one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the NFL to one of the lowest as far as turnover-worthy plays. He played smart. He played within the structure of that system, and they won some games for it. If he can do that again in a weak NFC, I don't see why they could get a wild card spot again.
All right. Now we're to the top 5, and you still haven't brought up the Lions. Is this where the Lions come off the board? Because this is a shock to me. Please tell me 5 is the Lions.
Not where I put the Detroit Lions.
Lord.
You know how high I was on them last year. We'll talk about Detroit when we get to them. But honestly, this is a team who I considered putting slightly higher. Let's finish out the NFC West, except for your Niners. That's the Seattle Seahawks. What I like about what Seattle did is they were able to overachieve in a year that a lot of people, myself included, wrote them off. They were number 32 last year. On this show in my preseason power rankings, the Seahawks were. Boy, did they prove me wrong. And they did it with a lot of rookies. They basically had one of the best rookie classes in 2022. That's only going to say great things for the future. Oh, and by the way, they added, by all accounts, the top wide receiver and the top corner to go with their draft class from last year. So Seattle, I think, is here to stay. I think they're going to be a playoff team again. I don't think they're quite on the level of the Niners, but I think they'll give him some tough games. Geno still hasn't written back. I have him in one of my dynasty leagues. I picked him up for FOB, so really excited to see what that has done. And especially in a weak NFC, I just think you're going to be looking at probably a 10-win season again, at least for Seattle, and they'll be right back there in the playoffs.
I'm curious. I think, like most teams, the quarterback position is huge. Which Geno are you getting? Because the first half of the season, like legitimate MVP caliber play, second half of the season was average at best average. And so did they figure him out?
What I think happened is a couple things. I think he had no expectations on himself and no one had any expectations on him. On top of that, the offensive line played very well for the first half of the season. Those 2 rookie tackles and Abraham and Lucas played above what anybody thought they would play right away. They regressed a little bit towards the end of the year. It doesn't mean I don't think they're good tackles. I just think they came out gangbusters and then kind of came back down to earth a little bit. So his protection was not as good. The run game wasn't as good towards the second half of the year, especially with Kenneth Walker started getting injured. And the defense wasn't able to hold up against certain games. I think the Germany game was a turning point against the Bucs. I actually picked them to win that game. Tom Brady said, "No, I'm Tom Brady. I'm not going to let Seattle beat me in the first NFL game in Germany." And so I think there was just a mental thing. I think that's with Geno. Like a lot of these quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins is kind of in the same category. If everything's good around him, Geno's actually a pretty good quarterback. People forget he was a second-round pick. A lot of hype coming out of West Virginia. He's got an insane amount of weapons. One of the best receiving cores in the NFL right now, especially if Jackson Smith and Jigba is everything that we think he could be with Metcalf and Lockett. He's just got to keep, if he tried to do too much, John. I think that's the simplest way. He tried to do too much. He tried to put too much on his own shoulders. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. He is not the kind of quarterback who can single-handedly win a game. Play within the structure. You've got some really good pieces around you. If he does that, I think we'll see good Geno. Maybe not MVP Geno, but maybe top 10 to 12 quarterback Geno.
Yeah, I like this comment from David. He says, too many young players need to start in Seattle. I'm expecting a step back this season, which they were 9-8. Like, people, that's the thing. Like, they got off to a super hot start, and then everybody just kept that kind of persona about them. But it was like, they were bad. They limped into the playoffs, and like, I don't know.
Detroit should have made it. I wanted Detroit to make it. Yeah.
Detroit should have made it.
The 49ers Rush Podcast.